everybody. Welcome to Roundtable Live. It is November 17th, 2017. I'm joined by BaerTaffy, Mathis Games, Rock Lee Smile, Northern Lion, and... What's going on?
That face when you're joined by yourself.
You're joined by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, did I say that didn't even occur to me. But joining us yet again is very special guest, Edmund McMillen. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's been an exciting time for you recently, hasn't it? A lot of big stuff.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a chaotic cycle of insanity.
I would think reproducing would, fall up there in the top tier of big life-changing events, right?
Oh yeah, life-changing. Everything is life-changing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No, the baby did change my life for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I take things a bit less seriously now, I guess.
Yeah?
As you guys know, I'm out of the loop completely, and I don't care about anything.
Which
makes you the ideal podcast guest.
Yes, exactly.
In that, actually.
Because what we do is spin tiny little controversies out into something enormous. So it's like, it's a good balance on each side.
Meet in the middle.
It is, yeah. Like we've been having a few conversations prior to the show going live today, and we're so inundated in this news cycle that like it was genuinely shocking to hear like what is going on with EA, like what the hell is all this nonsense? So we're gonna talk about that at the top of the show today, along with a little bit of discussion on the Game Awards nominees for the end of year categories and all that stuff. It'll be fun to talk about. Quite a few really, really good games in contention for the most coveted honors this year. Also going to talk about The End is Nigh, of course, Edmund's most recent release, along with his upcoming project, The Legend of Bumbo. We want to talk all about that, as well as all kinds of craziness and shenanigans. We had a lot of really fun conversations, learned a lot about ourselves, I think, the last time Edmund was here, so I'm looking forward to a little more of that. Learned about Mathis's embezzlement. That was fun.
God, it never ends. That is my identity in the circle of the NLSS fans now, as I am just a felon. So
yeah.
Clutch felon.
Clutch felon. Yeah, no, you did it well, so we got to give you credit for that.
Clutch felon.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
But
At
anyway.
least you didn't beat off in front of anybody.
Yeah.
My next one. That's my
Could be
next
worse,
one.
yeah.
People have done it on Twitch. I won't be the first.
That's true, man. Yeah,
I wouldn't be the first.
I'm so sad that you telling me about a guy beating off on Twitch immediately conjures an image in my head of exactly what happened.
Me too, actually. Yep. I can see the lighting in the room immediately.
Was it a purposeful thing or was it an accidental thing?
I think it was very much accidental. Yeah, it was
Yeah. Accidental.
Okay. It was the one that was like this. Hey!
just
Well,
deer in the headlights stare.
this episode's immediately going up in the hierarchy already.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyway. Hey, Mathis, will you please give me a rundown of what's been going down with EA this week?
All right, so EA has been embroiled in a wonderful controversy over its Star Wars Battlefront 2 game that was recently released. There was a controversy when the game was in EA Origin's like early access phase, where people who are subscribed to Origin get a week with the game before it comes out. And during that time, they discovered, while we all knew loot crates were going to be in the game, how bad the loot crates were actually going to end up being. To the point where to unlock a character, you would need to grind, if you didn't want to pay a single dollar, you would need to grind 40 hours to unlock a character within the game itself, to get enough of the currency to unlock somebody that you want to play. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is Star Wars. This is a game where all your favorite Star Wars characters are coming together and they're just battling. So, of course, what they do is they lock some of the best characters behind that wall, Darth Vader being like the most expensive one. However, of course, what you can do is you can pay real money to get the currency to unlock these characters. The other thing that it does is that there's this card system that are just straight up upgrades to your loadout. Things that'll make you do more damage. Your grenades will have a wider radius. You'll have access to different guns and different specials and different weapons and all the stuff that you can get just by getting loot crates that you get randomly or pay for with currency. Or you can spend money to just go and just pump out a bunch of loot crates to get all these rare different types of things. It was so exploitative that it was just kind of like the straw that broke the loot box camel's back. I mean, people have been bitching about it for such a long time, but this is so egregious, it's so horrible that people are just like, F it, like I'm not touching it. The other little thing that I want to point out too is that there's an arcade mode where you can play the game and earn in-game currency. However, the arcade mode only lets you gain currency for like the first X number of matches before it locks you between behind like a 13 to 14 hour wall before you can earn in-game currency by playing arcade mode again. It's a lot
of the staples of free-to-play mobile games.
It was a free-to-play mobile game with a premium price tag attached to it.
You guys are spinning this out of control.
Oh, please tell me how
already,
wrong
man.
The intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes.
Minus
Subverted
500,000
expectations.
downvotes on that response.
Right, yeah. That was
EA's response to it.
I was amazed at the gall of them to be like, how should we respond to this criticism? And they were like, well, let's just say that they can either pay money or they can be imbued with a sense of pride and accomplishment for playing the game for 40 hours to get the character that they paid $60 for to get the game in the first place.
So,
in essence, just saying, you're stupid. We just know better than you, right?
I want to. It's not done, is the thing. So when that came out, EA's outside of that little response, they're like, okay, we'll slash the amount of in-game currency it costs to unlock a hero by 75%. What they didn't say is they also slashed the rewards you got for completing the campaign by 75%. So they're like, don't worry, we hear you. We're just going to cut it, then not tell you that we're also cutting like how much you can actually earn, meaning it is literally pointless, and that they thought that we weren't going to notice or that somebody wasn't like going to check. And it was either I can't remember. It was like Game Informer, one of the media outlets that discovered this.
I think it was
and
Game Informer,
Yeah, I also think it was.
They pushed out there, like, by the way, this is what they did. And to the point where eventually now they've removed the microtransactions temporarily. However, they did say that they will be back. And people were like, well, maybe it'll just be
back
cosmetic.
and in greater numbers.
Yeah, good Star Wars reference. I like it. But they did say that they would be back for maybe cosmetics or something, and then a website had a phone call with EA, and they said that the loot boxes, when they were returned, will be directly tied to progression again. So they're what it feels like is they're removing them off of the market so that people will buy the game in goodwill, and then a few weeks later, after everybody bought the game and they've made their money, the loot boxes come right back, and they've been quote-unquote rebalanced, but now it's too late because you've bought the game and you've put hours into it and you can't refund it.
Was that phone call thing this morning or something?
It was today. I'll find I tweeted the link. I'll grab the link real quick.
No, I just thought it was funny because I was just coming up with this idea that, this is probably just so you can get week one sales up, and it's funny to see there's actually confirmation of that. So, yeah, it's a very cynical take until you see that they're actually just doing exactly the cynical thing.
And they're using the terminology that makes it very clear that they understand it, too, which is a little bit more damning. So,
I'll get the quote. But you can continue, please.
Well, I'm just to kind of put the ball in your court here, Edmund. I know you probably are not as passionate about it as the 500,000 people that downvoted EA's response on Reddit, but just kind of your take on the situation in general. Are you really worried at all about this wave of loot boxes taking over things?
Oh no, it sucks. I mean, it's just it's the perfected version of pay to win, which mobile started years ago, that everybody is like. So I can tell you from behind the scenes, there are a few types of developers. There's the developers that are and these are 95% of developers. I want money. How can I get money? I want more money. These people
sorry to interrupt. Chat's saying you're really quiet. Can you turn your volume up just a little bit?
Sure. How do I do it?
Good question. I was really looking for a way to do it on my end, but I don't think Zoom is really helping me out here.
All right. If you right-click in the system tray, the speaker's icon, and then recording devices, and then whichever one has a green check mark as default device, I think you got it.
Okay. 1 second.
How in the world did that happen?
His camera went off.
Now
so
the
he got
picture
stuck.
has
Swapped your
disappeared.
places. What the fuck happened?
Hey,
Okay.
hey.
Wait, I'm still doing it. It turned off the. Okay, so it's using my microphone from my webcam.
Ah, classic move.
Audio options. I could use my other one. Let's see.
Sorry about that. I just didn't want us to have another Hollow Knight, revisit
No,
because
I
Team
appreciate
Cherry
it.
was too quiet.
I have another microphone right here. Let's see if this sounds way better. 1 second.
No worries.
Select
Hey,
microphone.
everybody. Just gonna.
Okay, did that change?
Is
Oh,
it
it did,
good?
yeah.
You
It's
sound a
better.
lot clearer, but you're still quiet.
It is still quiet.
How about now? No, nothing.
A little quiet still, but it is very, very good quality comparatively.
Yeah, compared to the other.
I'm using this now.
There you
I've
go.
seen that
Wow.
before.
Yeah,
I know that.
that's a
mic-
staple to our work.
I'm very familiar with that.
If you just put it in your mouth, that might handle it.
Chat is saying it's fine, much better, much better. It's
Okay.
great, much better.
Okay, we can roll with this.
My mic volume is all the way up.
So
Okay.
that's fine.
It's
As
good.
good as it
Like
gets.
the quality level actually improved.
I can get
it. Like,
louder.
you can just yell. Yeah,
I'm
Just become a Let's
Player.
we got the
But I'll
project.
try to sort of stay close to the microphone. What the fuck were you asking me? What am I saying?
Oh, we were talking about
EA
the loot box fiasco. So
I was talking about stupid developers. And how
yeah,
stupid-
exactly.
So a majority of developers, even though they like to say that they're not, they're incredibly money driven, and they're always like, so and so's making $1 million doing this abusive tactic. How can I get in on this? And then they all jump on board. And EA, as the giant company that it is, decided, we're going to take this acceptable mobile tactic and we're just going to apply it to the game that we release. And it's shitty. I mean, it's obviously shitty.
Yeah.
Like, but people have been doing shitty things to get you to pay more money for their games for forever, and people are really greedy, and you can't expect. I mean, it's good that people make a fuss. It does help, even though it's annoying at times for other people. Me. But yeah, no, I kind of get now. This gives me a better picture of why, like, whenever I do something wrong in a game that I'm working on, people instantly jump to, there's a conspiracy in place. And Edmund's trying to get money from us. Like the latest thing was like when we released Afterbirth Plus, we were gonna do greed daily runs.
Yeah.
And some of this just faded into nothingness. And unbeknownst to me, that went up as a feature on the Steam page, and we didn't even know it existed until somebody recently brought it up months later. And it was like, well, shit. I mean, I don't think that people even want that to begin with. It probably won't be that great either way because people are constantly complaining about the daily runs regardless. So they just removed it from the Steam page, and then it became this thing like, see, he stole from us.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
stole from us. And it's like, I couldn't completely understand that, but when faced with this, it's kind of like, like when you're kind of working with the faceless corporation, literally trying to juice you and treat you like an idiot, and just capitalize on people who have gambling addiction, which sucks. Yeah, I mean that's the way it is. But I would say a lot of developers are like this.
Yeah.
Like this is
I mean, we've seen in the industry, specifically with AAA, over the past 2 to 3 years, like this loot box kind of freemium thing, slowly pushing its way more and more into the forefront of these games. So when I see people on Twitter specifically like, why is it EA that's brought you all down? They've been doing it forever. So if you're going to bitch about one, bitch about all of them. It's like, it's not the fact that it's EA or Battlefront. It's that we've been kind of talking about it for so long. It's like I said earlier, it's just the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like something had to give at some point.
Yeah,
And
well, there's also an acceptable way to do it and not like.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem with the way Overwatch does their shit. It's
Yeah.
little shit. It doesn't put anybody in any advantage. It's random. I've never paid, and I've never even thought about paying real money for anything because it's an incentive for me to play more and play well, so I can get more XP and get loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's fine. There's absolutely I have no issue with it. I even play Pokemon Go, and that's questionable, the whole incubator situation. But whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but when you're literally saying, we think our game sucks so much that we're gonna give you stuff to make you better than other people,
and we just throw out all design. Like, fuck game design. Fuck that.
Well, that's the thing.
You're good. Like,
It's so clear that this game is Battlefront is designed around this whole progression system that even removing microtransactions, the progression system is still in place through just earning in-game credits and stuff, because that's how the game is built. It's built around getting boxes and getting loot and unlocking characters. Like, the game is, every aspect of the game is gated behind something that you have to earn or pay for. And when you remove that, the game is just, well, you'd have everything, but a lot of what the game was built around is just gone, and it's nakedly in front of you how poorly designed the game is built, which sucks.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like it's really not an issue of EA or the fact that it's Battlefront. Like it matters that it's Battlefront for other reasons, but we'll talk about that later.
I was gonna say, I think the fact that the game is Star Wars in the peak of Star Wars hype a month before the new Star Wars movie drops, and like this is like a big release, and then it's a mainstream release. It's like, I think that was a part of the reason that this particular straw is so heavy.
Well, and the whole concept behind Battlefront is it's like Super Smash Brothers for Star Wars fans. Is like, oh, what if I could like play really well and then I can be Boba Fett against Darth Maul, and then like that's the selling point. And then when you put the characters who are like the biggest part of that selling point behind what's essentially an incentivized financial wall, it just reeks of cynicism. Mm-hmm. Like, people were already a little cynical because they're like, Battlefront 1 wasn't that good, but it still sort of accomplishes like it's fun if you're a Star Wars fan. Yeah. Battlefront 2 is like, what if we took the main selling feature and also added like another loot treadmill with real money beside it as well? So, I mean, there's been a lot of ink spilled on Twitter, I guess, about like, I mean, it sucks for the developers that the game has come out and everybody's just talking about the microtransactions, but what do you expect in a situation like this in which the game is cynically very much appearing to be a vessel to just sell you loot boxes at this point?
Well, and EA hasn't really been very good with how they've handled the PR, in my opinion. They've kind of rubbed it in everyone's face that, well, they're coming across like they're trying to be responsive, and in that they're actually just making it worse. That they're listening to the community, and as a result, they're going to make these changes, but also in the same apology, they're going to put them back the way they were. Yeah. Like, that's not an apology. That's just nothing.
It just reeks of corporate PR. Please buy our game so our stock stops falling, because it has been falling. They're down 3% or something. And
so if they're willing to just kind of lie to you at face value like that, then why would you want to incentivize them by giving them money?
And that's the thing, too, is they're surface-level fabrications. It's stuff that is so transparent that anybody can see through it, because you're like, Ryan just described it the way that everyone sees it. They're locking the best stuff behind this ridiculous pay-to-win system, and, like, you can't explain that away. It's so obvious that they're doing something wrong.
Well, if you can't get away from the fact that, like, when you're investing this much money in an IP, and they're giving a chunk of money, a giant chunk of money, to Disney. It's so Disney's hands are in this as well. Right. It's literally like, how do I make the most money out of this video game? We want this minimum guarantee. Like, is this going to sell well? Prove it to us. Whatever. And there are people in there who are like crunching the numbers and being like, well, on mobile, this abusive tactic gets this money, this does this does this. They know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They already crunched the numbers. They know exactly how to put things in a way to get you to buy them. You can't avoid that. I mean, it's just the way it works. And it's just like the Diablo controversy, which seems like so minimal now, but it's like they knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They knew exactly what they're doing. And it's like, oh, whoops, like that was
to come back at it like they didn't, like it was an accident that this all just happened. Sorry. Like, that seems really disingenuous to me. And the fact that then they take it further, but there's almost this like sub-level outrage of how dare you accuse us of this, really morally questionable thing that only serves to make it exponentially worse to me. Yeah. And then there's pushback from developers too, like, well, AAA games have to cost this much, and this is the way the game industry is now. But like, they are in charge of the budget when they first make the budget, so I don't know. It's a big complex issue, and there's a lot of factors weighing on each other. I don't know that anybody's necessarily right and completely wrong, but I don't think it's as complicated as it sometimes comes across to.
It's the worst example because it's taking the exploitative microtransaction stuff, loot box model from free-to-play games, but then it's applying it to a game that's also $60. So it's taking literally the thing that makes it unabsolvable from both camps and then adding it together.
And not only that, but like the loot, like that's already that kind of thing existed in the new Shadow of War game, which is taking the premium thing. But that was a single player game. The fact that now you're putting it also in a multiplayer game where the money you spend directly correlates to how powerful your character is in a game against other players. Yeah, it's like it's the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when people would talk about the single-player pay-to-win situation, their argument was, well, people back in the day would spend $20 on a strategy guide. It's like, it's like, you know, if people are willing to pay to get help, you know, way back in my day, you have to call the Nintendo hotline, which costs, you know, your parents will fucking flip when they.
Do you remember how much that was?
It was expensive.
Yeah.
It was as much as any other like 1-900 type number situation. Right. I remember always hearing stories of people going to their friend's house and then using their friend's parents' phone. You go to the rich kid's house and then you're like, oh, just call this number. It's fine.
That's some clutch felon level shit right there.
Hey, great.
But yeah, no, we're in a shitty situation. I mean, with video games in general, like everybody's freaking out right now. Like even indies are really worried about the future. Like, you know, there's a bunch of other problems, like the gatekeepers falling off of Steam and just letting anybody just upload whatever else, and all the indies are just going, oh shit! Like, now we're competing. Now there's 20 shitty games that come out, and 1 or 2 good games, and all the shitty games are going, I have to compete against all these shitty games.
I wanted to ask you, like, I don't know how often you have your ear to the ground in the indie loop, but you kind of mentioned it, but do you feel that this loot box thing is beginning to kind of creep its way into the indie side of things too? Or do you think it's mostly locked to the AA, AAA side for now?
I mean, it's been there for mobile. Like, Like, I do try to just stay the fuck out of the indie scene. Like that whole, and the business side of things is just so amazingly tired. I'm sure you guys have that business side of things too, that, you know, behind the scenes that you have to deal with, and people like probably talk about. It's like, how do you do this and how do you do that? Maximizing your whatevers.
I mean, if you want to put it to visual, it's just usually a bunch of people on fire running around screaming, help me.
What did YouTube do this time?
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely there with indies, and they're all asking each other, you know, it's literally like what I said, did you hear about so-and-so? He made millions of dollars doing this. And it's like, how can I make that money?
Right.
So I know on mobile, definitely it's there. I'll give the independent scene credit and say like, well, they're all gamers. They're all internet kids. So they will be enraged by the same things that everybody's enraged by. So they usually will shy away from really abusive tactics. But it's definitely there for mobile. It's just like, it's one of those situations where once it's okay to do something in this area, then it's okay. And it's like, we had it's like you just jockeying for the standards. And there's a standard that says you can do loot boxes for freemium games on mobile as long as they're not pay to win in multiplayer situations, and as long as they're not super abusive, even though the gambling aspect of them is still questionable.
Yeah.
And people argue about that all the time. Like Tyler, the guy I made The End is Nigh with, he made a cookie clicker loot box game, which is, you know, great commentary on the whole situation, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right, yeah, that was the one that was just like exclusively just you open loot boxes and that's the game, right? Yeah.
And make things.
He added this thing where you can pay to buy loot boxes in the game. And he made a few bucks off of it.
That's
but
great.
He also did it as like, and people got mad at him that he was doing it. It's like, you're doing this as satire, but you're also putting the abusive tactic in the game, and it's like, well, it kind of makes it funnier.
Yeah.
Like,
It genuinely does. I think it's funny that he's making a little money off of it. That's great.
No, that amplifies the joke.
yeah, it was good stuff. But yeah, they're not as bad, but they're not the greatest. They're still money driven. You can't get away from it. People love to like be these courageous, justice for all people, but the reality still comes down to it's questionable when somebody takes the opportunity to come out against tyranny when their game just dropped and they also want to do press.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like it's still focused on the dollar, I think. You can't get away from that. Sometimes I feel like a complete and utter alien in the industry because I really do primarily, and it could be the situation, of course, that I'm in, but I feel like I've always been like this. I care mostly about my work. I care about saying something. I care about having fun doing what I'm doing because it's my hobby, it's my career, and whatever money I make is great. And I did that for 10 years before Super Meat Boy, and then I started making money. Like, there aren't that many. There are a handful of people independently that continue this. The high majority, because there's a lot now, are just looking for that. Like, they're just literally looking how can I make a quick buck and how can I capitalize off this. I'm going to rant a little bit more. There was this it wasn't a message board. It was like an email thread thing where people could get together. Initially, it started for independents where it was like, we don't want to get fucked over because back in the day, it was really easy to get screwed over, especially if you were doing overseas publishing. Literally, you'd be like, oh yeah, I got this deal in Singapore. They're saying they're going to send me 10 grand. And then you never see money and they go away. And then it's like, how can I tell other people to not work with that company? And so this little group arose, and over time it just bloated into this huge giant thing. And you'd literally get people saying like, hey guys, I came up with this abusive tactic in order to juice people for money. What do you guys think of it? A lot of people would be like, fuck you, get out of here. What you're doing is bad. Other people would be like, oh, let me in on this. So, people are people, and it's an industry that makes money. So you're going to see a lot of people leaning on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the money thing really is at the heart of the argument, too, when we talk about their response, circle back to the Battlefront thing. Like, the fact that they're being so clear in their intention to remove it here and then reintroduce it later on is like, yeah, it's right there. They're trying to get as many sales as they can out of the gate, and then they'll put it back in when everybody stops caring, and then they'll make the most money. This is the response that is necessary given the feedback.
It also drives me a little nuts the way that it's starting to get min-maxed to what can we do psychologically and what kind of studies can we perform to try and extract the most possibility out of our audience, and the types of things like that patent that Activision filed recently about, if you see another person firing this gun, they'll try and group you together with them, and then you'll end up wanting to buy it, and then they'll incentivize you to buy it. It's like really subtly insidious stuff.
Did you see that, by the way, Edmund? I don't know if you saw what Nick was just talking about, that Activision patent that they were trying to get through that would allow you, or that would allow them to use an algorithm built in the game to try to sell more microtransactions as a result of what you see in game. Like, are they like it wasn't like a bot situation, right, where there were fake people playing, or was
no, but they'd match you against people that had premium stuff that was better than what you had, so you'd be more likely to lose a little bit and be like, I need to get that item,
right?
So
yeah, that kind of stuff, that kind of min-maxing is what really is, I think, making me more frustrated. The fact that they're spending so much time trying to analyze how people think to take advantage of them more. Like, is it not enough just at face value? Like, just make your money as you can.
Yeah.
I know it's capitalism, but it's ugly.
And that's what has annoyed me. If we're circling back to the response from a lot of indie developers on Twitter, I usually find myself taking the opposite position here. But there were a lot of hot takes this week about games, they cost the same as they did 12 years ago, but there's this thing called inflation, and then Steam sales are driving a race to the bottom. And I think to some extent, that's obviously all empirically true. But at the same time, people are mad about what you're doing. They're mad about Battlefront. And unless you're approaching that level, which like 0.1% of PC indie devs are, like you're kind of just, I think you're fighting for the wrong side in this one. Like people are not cynical necessarily about what indie developers are doing much of the time. But I saw a lot of people who were like, games are expensive to make. And yeah, we know. You're doing fine with what you're doing. You're already not putting loot boxes in your game. Everyone's mad about literally the worst example they've ever seen. I think you just like let them be mad now and then like choose a different cause.
Oh, is that what that whole thing, like when I was seeing people tweeting about like, this is what it costs to make a game? That was what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a proportion of people that they took it as like, the gamers are angry again. Like these basement dwellers are getting pissed off, and they're like, I've got to take the pro dev stance. The pro dev stance, in my opinion, is you let the devs make the best game that they can and keep the executive meddling as minimal as possible to avoid this like cynical business trash that is crept in. And if there's economic realities, like especially a huge game has got to make a ton of money to support the team of 800 or whatever that are working on it. But like Joe Indie, who made like a $10 platformer, being like, well, games are expensive to make, you're on our side on this one. You're not DICE. It's okay. Like
I can see that. I can see that knee-jerk reaction, like when you're one or two people making a game, and because there is like you mentioned too, there are some indie controversies that come up, and then communities just crush the developer that's there, and a lot of people have gone through that. Even at a small level, it still feels awful to have like people retaliate. The people that you think really support you and love what you're doing suddenly hate you for a day or two or forever. It's such a crushing blow that I think they probably can relate to this. They just think of it as, what about the developers that are sitting there watching this all unfold and being hated on, and they want to swoop in and try to be like, devil's advocate or voice of reason when it comes to developers and how much games cost. But no, it's still shitty. Like there's still, I mean, come on. Like everybody's fighting about fucking morals. Like everybody's fighting about morals. This is a moral situation. It's a moral argument.
Yeah.
Like they basically, EA should either say, this is what we do. If they did that, if they were like, well, this is how we want to make our money, take it or leave it. It's like, that's a more respectable approach to be like, well, we didn't know. Maybe
I agree.
It's like, it's fine. This is the way things work sometimes. And if people don't want to do this, they don't have to do this. It's shitty that they did it, but sometimes you just got to stand by what you laid out and just be like, hey, that's how it is. If you don't like it, that's fine. Like, just don't play it.
They got to embrace their villain role WWE style, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, they turn heel.
Like Konami.
Right.
Well, that's the other thing is that it's so often on this show, I'm the one who's like, well, if you don't like it, don't buy it. The publisher and the developer can do whatever they want and, blah, blah, blah. The only reason I've become so far on the other side here is because they treated their audience like idiots with the response to the complaints. Like, we wanted to give players a sense of accomplishment. What are you think you're talking to like 100,000 8-year-olds or something that will just take that at face value? It's just a ridiculous statement. And then on Wednesday, they were like, we're going to do a damage control AMA on Reddit. And then people asked them basically the same questions. And they were like, no, really, like we designed the game so that people would be exhilarated when they unlock stuff. You're like, no, what you do is on Wednesday, you apologize for the way that things have gone. And then you pledge to at least change them in the future or something like that. Instead, they were just like, essentially they were saying, we know more than you do about this. And like, we're not going to change it. And then they did anyway because
they have goodwill, right?
Yeah.
Like they're acting like we're not aware of their stance in the industry for the last however many years. And that's another level of dissonance that they're not acknowledging with their response.
Yeah.
And even just, again, the temporary thing, how they're apologizing, saying we're going to fix this, but also we're going to put the microtransactions back in. No, you didn't hear the argument then. We don't want the microtransactions, please. This is a $60 game.
The reality too is that they went in thinking about, this is the way it was going to go. This is the way we're going to make our money. They're not going to waver. They're going to go back to it because this is what was promised. And this could even be a contractual obligation on their part that they can't change. Like, it's a bigger scene situation. It is it is like a development team, and then it is a PR team that is completely far away from the development team, and then it's like, you know, a marketing team, and it's like all these business management, different bits and pieces that are going, and then you've got like Disney, and then you've got EA, like you've got like all these heads that are saying this, and you know, for all we know, there's contracts in place that say this is how it has to be, and this is how you do damage control. Like and they did exactly what they were supposed to do and said exactly what they were supposed to say. It's difficult to be honest in a large corporation.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly playing by the rules that are set in place for you.
If anything, I'm just mad about like the double dipping, because I don't care about software or games as a service, and I subscribe to many. Like I know that it's economically worse now for me that I've subscribed to Adobe Creative Cloud for like 3 years straight. Like I paid more for Photoshop than I would have if I had just bought it outright 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But I'm okay. I'm like, I get $12 worth of value out of Photoshop a month, of course, so I'll continue to pay for it. But imagine if Photoshop was like, it's the same price as Photoshop was 3 years ago, and to use it, it's another like $13 a month on top of that. Like, just choose the software as a service model or the game as a product model, and then it's fine. But the thing is, if you go software as a service, you can't release Battlefront 3, Battlefront 4, Battlefront 5, you know, over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, because people are, you have to remain committed to like a platform instead of, you know, these cash injections that you can get once every couple of years. So
I think that's a lot of the reason maybe why we're starting. Like I literally just made this connection, so maybe there's not a lot to it. But that may be a lot of the reason why we're seeing these name reboots the way we are. You know, like trying to integrate the base level name of these products in these newer generations, because now they are able to not worry about the sequels and hopefully just keep the game itself, the base game, going as a service perpetually.
Yeah, this is the new ground floor, the new status quo for what all games should aspire to be, which is a model of a platform, essentially, that gets built upon over years. And I'm fairly sure that's what they wanted to do with Battlefront. I don't imagine that they were going to make a Battlefront 3. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know that, but it seems to me like they wanted to continue adding in stuff over time, especially why they spent so much time emphasizing community interaction. I mean, it's kind of the direction you take with that.
Yeah. And yeah, like it's so obvious that it was the driving factor in design and really around everything. It's funny too to note that like Ryan said, like they kind of were giving off the vibe that they understand it and it's designed that way on purpose and they don't intend to change it. I think really what happened is, there's this Forbes article here that says apparently a couple days ago, EA CEO Andrew Wilson took a call from Disney CEO Bob Iger, and that was, you know, they didn't have a pleasant conversation is the indication there, and that Disney needed something to be changed because they were getting headlines on CNN and shit saying like this game is ruining the entire video game industry or something.
I really think like another reason this is so big is because for the first time like major news outlets started picking up on it. BBC was the first one, and then other ones came around, and to have this kind of bad PR a month out from episode 8,
right?
I don't think Disney wants that. They don't want you know, one of their flagship Star Wars video game titles hitting like front page news of these major news stations saying this game is shit and it's exploiting their players, don't play it.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was not a good conversation.
So I know we're circle jerking over this over and over, but like the fact that
it's good to hammer it home, I think.
I think so too. But people were making the argument that games are expensive, and then that like infographic with the CEO or the EA's executive compensation for last year was going around. It was like, oh, the CEO got a $17 million bonus last year, and like everybody that was one level below the CEO got $6 to $11 million. Well, I found a cost-cutting measure, perhaps that you know you might be interested in. Like, are you really going to go to bat to defend? They're like, well, you know, games are expensive these days. Andrew Wilson got paid $17 million
as a bonus
last year.
As a bonus, yeah. It's just
I'm
extra
so
money.
on board with that line of reasoning. I also think, is it worth mentioning though that this kind of game specifically being a games as service model makes a little more sense though, being that it's a multiplayer game, it's online, it's got to have continued server maintenance costs, continued development, patching, balancing, all of that stuff does add up in cost. Do you think there's any extra latitude that should be given in that respect?
For some kind of like I agree, probably not every game can do this, but the Overwatch or Dota 2 model is really good, where if you just give people cosmetics, like, don't tell me that these nerds, myself included, would not have paid maybe $15 for like a Darth Vader skin that was alternate or something like that. Like
you go from Darth Vader to like the Darth Vader cracked helmet.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, something along those lines. Like, people, I think, would be totally. It's like they want to play dress up with Star Wars characters. That's why a lot of people are buying the game to begin with.
Disney doesn't want you to do that, though.
It might be like you can't drive Ferraris in this game because if they crash, they have to show damage.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Do you guys want to hear an industry story that has to do with EA and an independent developer?
Please, God.
Always
Love that. Yes.
This is a semi-unknown story, and I hope I'm not stepping on toes with it, but I know that I can as long as I say like I'm slightly fuzzy on the details.
Right.
Here, but it involves a friend of mine, George Fan. So George made a game called Insane Aquarium. He made it
I
independently.
love that game.
Yeah, he made it ages ago, and it won a lot of awards. And he got headhunted by PopCap, and PopCap hired him, set him off with 2 more people in a small office, and said, "Hey, make a good game." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to make Plants vs. Zombies." And he made Plants vs. Zombies, and it was hugely successful. They got acquired by EA. EA made that game even more successful. And then they were like, "Okay, we're going to focus on this, and we're going to make a sequel. We're going to do spin-offs. We're going to do this, this, and this." And George was like, "Great, I've got an idea for a sequel." And like, he developed this game independently as well, an independent mindset with a small team of people. It was personal. And knowing the guy, like, I can see, like, the characters are personal. Every little bit and piece is something from him. So it was his baby. And they're like, "Hey, let's make the sequel." Started the sequel. And they're like, "Okay, we're going to put it on mobile, and we're going to do this pay-to-win thing with it." And he's like, I don't know. That's not a good idea. I don't really want to do that with my game." And they said, "You're fired."
Whoa.
And he left. And now he's making independent games again. He's been working on this game called Octageddon, and I hope that this is such a newsworthy thing, and it's frustrated me for years that there's like not news stories about this. He can legally talk about this whole situation. He never signed anything saying that he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy thing that he and this was ages ago, that he took a stand against something like that in a video game, and EA, of course, is in the mix here. And the response was, "See ya. Like, if you don't want to play by the rules, then you can go play by yourself." Like, nobody really knows about it. And I'm sure shit like that happens all the time.
Yeah, no. I'm curious, do you know like how direct they were in their requests, like what they were asking for in particular for the new pay-to-win systems, what they were asking him to do?
I know some stuff, but it's one of those situations where I feel like George should be talking about this.
Yeah,
and I feel like he should be. I'm fuzzy on the details either way, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. But any press people listening here, you should be talking to George Fan, who has a game coming out soon. I'm sure he's totally willing to talk to you about this in depth. But he's a courageous guy, and he has some high moral ground that he's standing on here. And he took a fucking hard hit for that.
Yeah, really. Wow.
And I wish more people knew about it, and I wish he had more respect, because he's already a great fucking developer that nobody really knows, because EA and PopCap weren't really about pushing the developer out, even though it's him, a programmer and a musician, that made that game. So it's like, but yeah, that's my EA story.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow.
Which isn't mine, it's George's. Sorry, George, if I'm spilling any beans for you here, but I get frustrated when I don't hear people talking about this, and I hear people talking about EA, and it's like, well, I know about this, and why isn't anybody saying anything about that? But,
well, George has all my respect. I didn't know his name, actually, but I have known his work for years.
His name is George.
His name is George.
Sometimes you gotta toot other people's horn. Toot other people's horn for them. So
Yeah,
there you
But
go.
only if they let you.
Yes.
Let's start a social media platform campaign. His name is George. Hashtag people knowing about George.
Yeah.
Good old George.
Octageddon.
Yeah.
The next game he's working on.
Octageddon.
Does he have a website or anything for that? We could give it a plug.
I think it's placeholder right now. I would expect some. I think he's going to do a press push pretty soon. So
Cool.
more people will be knowing about it, and then hopefully he'll talk more about the PopCap stuff. He's got see, this is my indie business mind here. He can hit hit the EA while it's hot.
Yeah.
Right?
There
This
you
is
go.
the time.
Exactly.
All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, like Ryan said, I think we circle jerked enough a bit about this one, but suffice to say, it's just not a good look for EA. Wish they wouldn't do it. Never mind. I'm not going to keep talking about
Let's
it.
just issue a stop that to the 10th power to EA.
Yeah. Stop that.
Stop that!
Stop that!
There we go.
Stop that is a segment we do when we want people to stop things.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that required explanation. All right. Before we get into more Edmund stuff, by the way, we're going to be taking questions from chat. So if you guys have questions for Edmund during the second half of the show, get those ready, and we'll be looking through chat and seeing what the good ones are. Before we do that real quick, though, big news. Game Awards nominees were just announced this past week. So
Yeah.
When you say Game Awards, what's the awards?
the Game Awards is the official show, man. It's the real deal. It's the bees.
The Game Awards.
The
You
Game
know, like
Awards.
like the
Is it
movie
like
awards.
Spike TV?
So
Yeah.
so Spike did that a few years ago, right? They had like what did they call it? Even the Game Awards too, or what did they call it? I don't remember.
Jeff Keighley's I'm Doing It Myself awards.
No, the Spike one.
It was the Game Awards.
Was it the
Yeah,
Game
it was the
Awards?
Game-
Okay, it was just the Game Awards. Okay, so now it's just the Game Awards. Is Jeff Keighley still doing it? And
I was in the Game Awards. You know
Were
what game
you?
I lost to? A game called
Who?
Minecraft.
Oh,
And I also lost the year before that to another game called Minecraft.
But
was
that's
it a different game?
Super Meat Boy Minecraft. Okay, I lose. And then Super Isaac Minecraft.
Mm.
So do you think unfinished games should be allowed to get awards?
I don't give a fuck.
Good answer.
I don't fucking
I
care.
like that. Yeah.
But also, I believe you're talking about the IGF. These are the Game
These
Awards.
the
Oh,
Game
Game
Awards.
Awards.
Oh, it was?
Binding
Okay.
of Isaac was in the Game Awards and it lost because what's his name presented it. Guillermo del Toro presented
Mm.
the award or whatever. It was like an indie award.
I feel like Guillermo del Toro, if he had a personal choice, would choose The Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
He better.
So do you like? Okay, so like we don't have to have the conversation, obviously, about the early access stuff. Then, are you still interested in like the Game of the Year stuff at all? Is that something that you care about as a developer?
No.
No,
Yeah,
not
like,
really.
how much do you play?
I try to play stuff, but I don't. I mean, it's like realistically. So I'm playing through Mario Odyssey. I
Mhm.
play a lot of Overwatch with my wife. I kind of dabble in Pokemon Go a little bit, and then I just play the games that I'm developing for
Mhm.
playtesting purposes. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, I've been playing a lot of board games. I played this game called Kingdom Death, which is really cool.
Mhm.
But that's it. I hear a lot of stuff. Like if there were more interesting games that I would really be into, I'd probably take time to do it.
It was a pretty stacked year, man. I mean, like, well,
I'm out of
so, yeah, no. So you,
I had a kid.
oh, that's understandable.
Yeah.
You played a lot of Odyssey, you said, so that's actually up there on the list for a lot of people too. So you've been having, I would imagine, a comparable experience to them.
Oh yeah, no, it's great and it's very inspiring. It's really cool to see Nintendo listen to the audience. So the past couple, it seems like there's definitely been a changing of guard there when it comes to like, all right, we're done with this. We're past this. We're past instructions. We're past overblown intros. We're past easy things and handing things to people. Like we're gonna push towards difficulty and accepting the fact that people know how to play a Mario game and jump around.
Yeah, right.
So that's really cool. And I think that The Last Zelda was also a sign of this. These are two blockbuster titles from them that are both very similar in their approach to accepting the fact, treating the player with respect, being like, I know you're an intelligent person who knows how to play video games. While this isn't your first video game, you know the basics. Just go for it. If you need help, here's this. Like,
Right.
You don't have to do that. Yeah, I think Odyssey was great.
Sweet. We'll just indulge us for a few minutes here then as we'll just go over quickly the nominees for a few of the big categories here. We had Best Independent Game, which, again, just like a huge year for independents.
Presented by Chic Hydro. If you could please make sure that
Can
the
we
sponsor's
please-
name.
Hydro Man.
Can we please get Hydro Man again? Because that was so bad.
His own game.
In between every award, there was like for the show, there was these weird like live ads that they were doing where Jeff Keighley would go into the audience and a man dressed up as a razor was sitting in the audience and they would stand up and that was Hydro Man, the razor, and it was like 9 ads between each award.
Poor
The award
Persimmon
show would have
Man.
been like 15 minutes long if it wasn't padded so heavily by advertisements.
Yeah. There's that. Well, I didn't even actually notice this one. There is Best Debut Indie Game presented by Chic Hydro. So,
Sorry, I was mistaken.
There are 2 though. Yeah. So there's that one, which features Slime Rancher, Mr. Shifty, Hollow Knight, Golf Story, and Cuphead. Which, man, that's a hard
That's
choice.
a lot of good games,
Yeah.
Those
man.
are actually great. All of them are great games.
Hollow Knight is lovely, but I give is like strong favorite to Cuphead.
Yeah. It's tough, man. This is such a.
I lean Hollow
I'm a
Knight.
Hollow Man.
Hollow Knight.
Part of me wants to give it to Slime Rancher, man. Like they're all so
You're
good,
crazy.
but- No, Slime Rancher is like it stands out even with this kind of company. They're all just so good. So it's a great year for indies. And then alongside that, I suppose, would be the Best Independent Game, which also features Cuphead and includes Pyre, Night in the Woods, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And you played Hellblade, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved Hellblade, but not nearly the same degree that I loved some of the other ones you just mentioned. Edith Finch, top tier. Night in the Woods, super top tier for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even remember that was this year. That felt like last year already.
Oh, yeah, that was
Higher for me.
That was
That
like
was so
March, I think, Night in the Woods, right?
Man, what a year.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
Cuphead is in Best Debut as well as Best Indie Game.
Yeah.
So simply via the transitive property,
Oh.
we know that Cuphead must win Best Debut.
Yeah. You liked Pyre as well, Mathis, though, right?
I loved Pyre. I
Yeah.
thought Pyre was super fun.
So yeah,
I would give it to Pyre. I think I would give it to Pyre slightly over Cuphead, and I would give it to Hollow Knight slightly over Cuphead. I think is where I would land.
Yeah.
I love Cuphead.
I know you do.
Cuphead got
And-
several nods, man. Best art direction, rightfully so, obviously. And
I
then-
agree with that.
It's also like 180 minutes long, which is perfect.
I was gonna
So-
say
That's your
that,
ideal length now.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Looking at a few more here. I don't want to go over all of them, all the different genres and stuff.
You don't want to go over the most anticipated game
Well,
presented by Mick Cafe.
But for just game of the year here, there was the controversial entry of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds that everyone's very upset about. Then, of course, you've got Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Persona 5, which I'm really excited, actually, to see Persona 5 made the cut amongst the crop this year because it was great. I really, really love that game.
Persona 5 is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Odyssey, and for me, I think in that group, Odyssey is just. It's really weird because I wasn't here the week you guys spoke about Odyssey, but it's Odyssey is like. It's really hard for me to put into words why I am adoring that game, but
It's like a celebration, isn't it? It
Yeah,
feels
it
like
really is
a
like a
really happy, good time when you're playing it.
Like last night, I just did like the main New Donk City one where you go through the song at the end. And it's like it literally just encompasses a celebration of what Mario was and what he's become. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's really an emotional experience for somebody who grew up with Mario. I fucking
Same.
adore Odyssey so much.
It almost feels like a going away party somehow. Like this could be the last Mario game, and I would feel like it was appropriate.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
But I think it should win Game of the Year personally.
I do too. Yeah.
The only nominee that I've played is Battlegrounds.
Oh my god.
How sad is that?
And I think you own all of them, if not maybe not Persona.
I don't
Kate
own
probably owns
Persona.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, no, Kate owns Persona. She must own Horizon because I thought she played that on one. of
I
her
was gonna
streams
say
as
I
well.
thought I saw her playing that too.
Yeah.
Horizon's
But-
also fucking amazing. Actually,
Yeah.
like, I want to make another note here. Like, I stopped playing Horizon, and I really don't know why. I think I'm probably gonna go pick it up, especially because there's the DLC out for it now. But it is so good. It's so.
Yeah.
It looks incredible, and like, there's another actually nomination for Ashley Birch, I believe is her name, who played Aloy, and she did an amazing job. Like the voice acting is so good in that game, and it tells a good story. It's just it is top tier.
Dude, Ashley Birch is in everything.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
starting to branch
Taken
out quite a
over.
bit.
Except the Life is Strange prequel, thanks to the voice actors strike.
True.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, yeah, just the stacked lineup. A lot of people are actually kind of flustered by the omission of a few titles up there for Game of the Year consideration. Nier Automata certainly strikes me as one that people are wondering why it missed out. I guess Destiny 2 isn't really shocking a lot of people not making the cut, but certainly was, a big one that came out this year as well. I don't know about Wolfenstein 2. Now, Mathis, you played a little bit of that already, right?
I'm still playing through it, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like it. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
But 2017 has been an amazing year for games.
Yeah.
So I have to sit there and be like, some things have to be cut. I'm not mad about it, but I'm in the camp of like, why is PUBG in there when there's like so many other amazing games that came out this year?
Even
And
the developers of PUBG are saying, like, I don't know if we should be on that list.
Yeah, they're probably like, I wish we weren't nominated because
They
they're just
literally are
taking
saying
heat.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like this game is this year has just been stacked with amazing games.
Yeah.
Divinity 2, which is canceled.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it out there right now.
Oh, the series, yeah.
Yeah, just gonna get it out there for those. That was another amazing game that, in my opinion, deserves to be on at the very least. Would you consider Divinity 2 indie? Yeah, right. It's like AA. It's somewhere around there.
That's in that weird gray area now, isn't it?
Triple
like
We got to have the proper tag for it.
Yeah,
It's
triple
double
I.
A or triple I.
So yeah, I don't know. There's so many good games. So yeah, I'm not too mad that like, oh, this game should have been on there. Yeah, well, so would like nine other games should have been on that list. But
yeah.
it's only for 5.
All right. Anyway. Okay. Hey, let's get back into Edmund. Let's rephrase that. Hold on. Let's cycle back. Let's
Into Edmund.
well, we could call that. Let's turn that into a segment now. Getting back into Edmund.
Everybody in.
Hey, man, you released a game called The End Is Nigh this year. How was how did you feel once that was out there? What was your emotional response?
My emotional response. It was an oddly emotional experience developing it. I mean, it I don't know if it comes through, but just the themes and stuff that I was working with were very emotionally fueled.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a roller coaster that like a lot of the themes and meanings and reasons why I made it changed as we were developing it over like the 7 months that we were working on it. And when it finally came out, it was a very odd experience too, because it was the first game that I've ever worked on that I didn't try to hype until release.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the game did come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was mainly because I didn't know what was going to happen. So it was like last year we were working on a game called Ouroboros, and that had really good platforming elements, but it was a shooter. And we joked about how we should just make a platformer because it would be easier to make at this point. And then by the end of the year, we were like, we've been working on this for a year. Let's do something little to like get the juices flowing again. And we decided we were going to prototype a little platformer because we already had the engine made. I sketched up some stuff kind of just loosely about me feeling like this was the end for me. Like I was done with games and like I was considering kind of just retiring and just being done. I didn't know where else I was going to go. And it was kind of my confliction with that because, with the addition of a baby in the mix and your life changes and it just feels like, okay, you have to accept that certain doors are going to close. And so it was kind of me lamenting about development and the woes of development. It was like if Meat Boy was a love letter to video games, this would be my suicide note. This would be the antithesis of that. Like,
Yeah.
Meat Boy's light and fluffy and happy and goofy, and then this is just the dregs of the darkness, and you just keep going down, and things keep getting more stressful and harder and harder. And it was difficult going in to try to like, how do you present stress, dread, and defeat in a game in a way that is pleasing? Like,
Yeah.
how do you go about doing that? And it was like, it's such an odd dance of like keeping things stressful, keeping the feeling of like it's going to be over soon, but it's not, you know, like all these emotions like going in. But I think we did a really good job. But initially it started as a completely different thing. Like we thought when we were doing the, you guys might've liked this, when we were prototyping just on paper, what we wanted to do for a platformer, the idea was, and spoilers to anybody who hasn't unlocked these things and whatever else in the game, but the idea was to make the cartridges, like send out the cartridges to Let's Players, just be like, play this on stream, see how far you can get. And then everybody would compete, and they would be harder than they actually were, compete to complete it. And then another person would get the second piece, and then the next piece. And then they would all line up together. And then when everybody collectively beat them, the game would come out just as this segmented run, which happens in the game when you do the Super Mega Kart. And then we just put that up on Steam for like a few bucks. And that's what it was going to be initially. We played around with the idea of it being more like an ARG type thing that revolved around Let's Players. So it always had that Let's Play vibe, that idea of like being watched, being analyzed, you know, and kind of paralleling what you guys do. And that's why he Let's Plays in the beginning.
Right, yeah, no. If you've seen the introductory cinematic, there's the Ash character up on the top doing the whole spiel. So yeah, there's obviously that correlation there. So that was the predominant theme then, and the development was kind of just a metaphor for your own experiences developing games.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a play on so many different things in my life, as well as experiences with development. It's just like, kind of like trying to close the book on things, and like really questioning the value of what I was doing, you know. And that's what it is. It's like, it's a weird thing to say, but it's like, I want people to go through it and then question if it's worth it. And that's kind of what a lot of the cart endings are about, like questioning the value of the adventure.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like with Meat Boy, you kind of set out to do something really specific, and it's like, you're going to challenge yourself and you're going to feel better because you challenge yourself. And this is kind of like, but what if you weren't headed in the right direction when you were challenging yourself? What if you were totally headed in the opposite direction and you shouldn't have been doing that, and you were neglecting something else along the way? Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of how I do things when I go in. And of course I picked a platformer because it seems so appropriate to do it with. But, you know, you have all these different feelings and you have all these different ideas and designs, and you try to, you know, abstractly present them in a way that tells a story and sets a theme, as well as entertains and challenges. And I mean, personally for me, it's definitely one of the best games I've ever released. I felt really good about it. I didn't question. It's one of those things I didn't go back. Like if I could have gone back and done this, would I've done this? And like the one thing I might have done was add checkpoints to all the areas. So if you backtrack, it's a little easier to get to places. But other than that, I wouldn't have changed a thing. And I'm super happy with how it, you know, all came together. And I knew going in that it wasn't going to be like this blockbuster hit, because it's like probably the most challenging thing I've ever made. It's dreary as fuck. It's super depressing. And, you know, and it didn't have any kind of light attitude to it at all. It was just, it's hard, like just a weight. So, but
did you beat it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, of course. The only thing that I didn't do is I didn't beat the intro cutscene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
I was going to ask if there's anything behind that, if you do manage to finish that.
Oh, you haven't seen that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Spoiler!
I spoiled that for myself, yeah.
Yeah, no, there is. And we joked about that going in, how it would be funny if we did an ending. And then we're like, at the very end, we're like, well, we got a day. I can do like a cutscene. Put this in. And Tyler's like, oh, let's do it. Let's just do it. Like, we even questioned that it could even work in the way that we thought it would. Like, we talked about doing the whole Let's Play intro and then you playing the game. We weren't even sure if we could do what we wanted to do, but Tyler's really good, and we just got shit done. Like it moved really smoothly.
Yeah.
But
I gotta say, I love the idea of the metaphor of a platformer being sort of a parallel to life, because as in life, as you do something over and over, you get more proficient at it, and your experience sort of just evolves as you go. And I didn't pick up on a lot of the themes that you'd mentioned, but now that I'm looking back at it, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Seems like the perfect fit for it.
Yeah, again, going in, I don't ever expect people to really think of these things as much as I do, of course, going in. But it's for me, it's something that I have to do in order to like figure it out. Like it sounds so hippy dippy, but when I go into an art project and I have this rough idea of this is what I want to talk about. Why? Because it feels significant to me in some way. It's because it's an unanswered question. And then as I develop, and then it changes my perspective on the whole thing. And I get to like see it from a different angle and kind of get a bigger picture, view on everything. And then when it releases and then it's in the hands of other people and I'm watching other people's interpretations and other people play it, I have another perspective on it. It's like this kind of like purging of something. It's out of my body and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing people break it down and I'm understanding and I'm fixing things. It's just like this kind of bizarre therapy, I guess, in a way. So it was super helpful. I was going through like the past couple of years have been awful for me, like personally. And they've been great because I have a baby, but there's just a lot of really awful hardships and personal family stuff and, just awful things that happened. And this was just one of those things that had to happen in order for me to get past things. And I think it was definitely successful, and I'm super happy that we did it. It's also coming out on Switch on the 12th.
Yeah.
December.
That's exciting news.
So,
have you been involved with that much, or has that been mostly like a Tyrone thing?
He sends builds and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's a straight port. So there's not much that changes. It's just like make it identical to how it is here. So far so good.
So I was doing some research, as I do, because this is a very professional show. And I was reading through your recent AMA that you did, and you mentioned how you don't see yourself working on another traditional platformer for a while. Do you still hold that belief?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that like, when I finished Meat Boy, I just couldn't see myself doing another platform because how can I do anything different? How can I do anything better? You just don't have that kind of experience, and it's like, what has it been like? I mean, 8 years or something.
Been a while, right?
Yeah, close to it.
Yeah, and it's like, it just felt appropriate again. It's just like stuff just started falling out of me, where it's like, oh, if we just, when you're making a platformer, you usually start out with, okay, have really nice controls, make the player feel like they're superhuman in some way so they can easily get around, almost like you're flying and jumping really far, right? And then come up with one or two mechanics that are interesting, that can unlock a bunch of other mechanics that can be utilized. And so it's just bare bones. It's just like going in and it's like, well, okay, he can ledge grab and he can fall fast. Originally he could like fucking fly and hover and all this other stuff. It was totally Metroidvania. We were playing around with the idea of like, it's still there. What I ended up doing is I went away from the Metroidvania and I did the hidden in plain sight. Like you have all the abilities that you have from the beginning. You just don't know you have them until later in the game. And some people are able to discover those things early, which I think is really neat. And we just chopped off a few abilities and just went from there. And it's just kind of how you go with platformers, but I've had my fill.
Yeah.
It probably will be at least 7 or 8 years before I work on another straight platformer like this. This is pretty straightforward platformer with a mix of Metroidvania-ish exploration. I don't know what you want to call it.
That sounds right.
I want to know, like, so you release The End Is Nigh, and you talk about it being like a cathartic experience, but also kind of grueling. What's it like to release it, but then also be making something else that kind of has pressure to come out maybe not soon after, but it seems like you don't really get a reprieve. You're like, I'm going to do this thing, and it's like my exit from this industry, and then also immediately, like on Monday, I've got to start working again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a little weird. I mean, with Bumbo, development is very different because, I mean, at this point, James is carrying the load.
That's James Id, right?
James Id, yes.
Yeah.
And he and I made Finger together, and he did all like the really cool trailers to all the old games that I've done. I've worked on them on some other secret projects as well, but well, that's another thing. But yeah, at this point, it's a little more relaxing for me and actually just super stressful for him. So he gets to go through the hell that I was going through because with Bumbo, like the design stuff is essentially done; it's all in place. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the drawings that I do are super childlike, like really crude, fast crayon-looking shit on paper. And then he has to take that, put it on 3D paper, and then that goes onto 3D cardboard. And then he has to animate said cardboard in this cardboard diorama situation. So, yeah, the ball's kind of in his court right now, so he's the one that's taking the brunt of the development, and there's not much I can do to help other than, talk him off the cliff.
Sweet. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Bumbo then. So we've got pretty definitive stuff at this point, right? I think last year we were kind of speculating about what things would really look to be, and now it feels like it's pretty solidified, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll be out early next year. I thought we were going to hit the December date, but no, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Early next year is the goal, but I expect to start pushing it more next month and have a trailer out so people could actually see what it looks like as it's moving, and so people can be like, "Oh, you're making Bejeweled clone."
No, we called it a Puzzle Quest ripoff last time. That's what we
yeah, I'm fine with that. Bejeweled clone. It's like, oh, I'm just playing Bejeweled.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Honey Pop clone is really where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. It's similar to the End is Nigh, where it's like, I'd like to think that there's an elegance to the design that I think people will appreciate. But from, when the first screenshots of or videos of the End is Nigh went out there, like, oh, basic platformer, Super Meat Boy clone. And it's like, people are, I think people will kind of knee jerk and assume it's like a match 3, match 4 type game, which is a core mechanic aspect to it, but it's kind of a play on that. And like we said before, it's very Puzzle Quest-ish, and still tuning it and dancing around. It's like one of those things where you have to. The difficult thing I'm going through right now, design-wise, is making sure that the game is really difficult from the start without feeling crushing. Because I've played a lot of indie puzzle games, and they tend to be really, really difficult and alienating. Which I'll accept the fact that if this game comes out and it is alienating, sure. If that was what was best for the design, then it'll be alienating.
Yeah.
But trying to figure out what the game wants, trying to make sure that it stays tense throughout without feeling way too difficult. But I mean, at its core, it's like I'm taking the Binding of Isaac shell and I'm utilizing Bejeweled clone, turn-based Bejeweled clone. Basically, you have action points that you spend, movement points, I should say, to get mana from said jewels, but they're like poop and bones and teeth. And pee and boogers. So those are the core things.
Edmund currency.
Yeah.
Right. All your Edmund staples.
So can you talk a bit more about what Bumbo is for those people that may not have any idea what's going on with Legend of Bumbo up to this point?
Bumbo is the theme of it is a prequel to The Binding of Isaac, story-wise and everything. And I won't say why because it spoils things. But gameplay-wise, it's a randomly generated dungeon crawler that is a turn-based strategy game based on using a match 4 puzzle board in order to gain resources to cast spells and manipulate the incoming attackers.
Right.
Then there's, of course, randomly generated items. In the structure is very similar to the Binding of Isaac, where there's a treasure room and a boss and a little store. You make your way through, you get your item, you fight the boss, you get a bunch of gold, and when you complete it, you go and you gamble at the gambling hall. There's a major greed gambling theme to it as well, which I think is always fun to put in when you're selling a game.
Right. So the spell part, that's kind of what is a little bit more Isaac-esque in the design, right? Because that's the sort of thing where you're going to start seeing those crazy combinations of items and things that will start to scale on top of each other, right?
Yep, you've got a lot of items that stack on top of each other, and then you've got a bunch of trinkets that are either passive trinkets that give you bonus effects, or one-use trinkets that actually will manipulate your spell's mana cost, or let you free cast spells or tie spells together and that sort of stuff too. So you end up, there's a bunch of different ways to play because there's different characters that play very differently. But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of stacking spells and manipulating your own spells to try to keep things chaining. And
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you guys dig it. I mean, we've been working hard on it for a while. It took a year to just get the foundation ready, to make it talk enough to itself for it to be okay, this makes sense. I'm feeling good about this, because not only do you have your spells, all the little mana symbols, which are all the things I described, poop, pee, boogers, bones, and teeth.
Right.
Those are also doing things. So the teeth and the bones, when you match them, if you match 4+, he'll actually make a bone or a tooth and he'll throw it at one of the enemies, and you choose. The targeting system is really unique too. So it's kind of like a hall. There's three columns basically. So if there's a guy, there could be a guy here, guy here, guy here. You only hit the first guy in the column, and if there's a guy that's flying, you hit him first. So it's kind of like this arc that goes down.
Mm-hmm. So
you have to kind of strategize about how they're moving, and then their AI reacts differently to what you do. So it's trying to if the AI of a character is I'm a weak character, I'm a ranged character, I'm going to hide behind this big fat thing so it can take the brunt of whatever you're throwing at it.
Right.
And so you've got some stuff going against you there. And then you've got the defensive maneuvers, which are, I forgot to say hearts. There's hearts, which obviously you gain life from. There's poop, which is a shield that you place in front of you that takes a certain number of hits before it dissolves. And then there's boogers, and boogers will gum up one of the enemies for a turn, so it'll stop him from attacking you after he's primed. And then there's P, and P is the wild card that gives you movement points, because there's a sense of urgency. It's my logic.
Of
course.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot going on, and I have to make a tutorial for this one. I tried to not, but realistically, there's so much to tell that there needs to be some sort of basic tutorial just to simply.
You can't just put it all on the floor in the first room.
I can't. I tried. I really did. I thought I'm gonna just put it just draw the instructions on the box, because there's it started out in a box. No, it's not. I play tested that shit, and people do not know what the fuck is going on.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was saying, all right, Ed. I'm gonna pitch something to you right now, right?
Oh, here we go.
Does it have poop and pee in it?
All right, no, it's a sequel to Isaac. It's a mom dating sim. You play as Isaac's mom, going on dates, trying to find the next love of her life. I'm just saying.
Is it just her legs on screen?
It could be.
Match with Satan's legs as well.
100 moms drop out of an airplane,
Nice.
and then they fight each other until
All right.
only one mom remains.
How about a Momtroidvania?
I like it.
She'll get her spin-off one day.
All right, good.
So we'll open up the chat for questions for Edmund. He's a fairly open book. I imagine he'll continue that trend here on the show today. So if you've got questions about Bumbo, or about The End Is Nigh, or about his previous work, about his life, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer those. Use that at Roundtable Podcast when you're asking your questions, so we can more easily see it, if you could, please. And we'll take your questions. I'll start it off. Big question, first of all. How much is the season pass going to be for Bumbo? We gotta be clear about that out of the gate.
There would be it's $15 season pass that lasts indefinitely when you buy it.
Nice. There we go.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good.
Could be
Oh,
worse.
those are cool.
Then I was going to ask you how much the loot crates are, but that's just kind of nailing the
Loot
dead
crates
horse,
are
isn't
free.
it? Oh, wow. That's a big development.
Free loot crates.
Do you
And
hate
then
money?
what's going to happen here is when there's no loot crates in the game, people are going to fucking shit and lynch me.
Oh no.
Loot crates.
Well, isn't that the end game in the industry, is to make something that people love so much that they just kill you? So
Sure, I guess.
Yeah.
They get so obsessed with you that they want you dead so they can then take over your body and create in your place. That's what we aspire to.
We had a few people asking about a release date for Bumbo. He said early 2018 is the window you guys are looking at, right?
Yeah, it's a weird thing too. People always are like, well, when is it going to come out? And it's like certain games are like, well, we're far enough away from it where we're not sure yet.
Sure.
So we don't want to put anything in stone because unlike the end is nigh where we just like locked it down, it's like we think we're going to be done by this date. Let's set a date and go for it and crunch till that time, which is stupid. I don't recommend doing that. It's just stupid. But this one, I don't want to fuck this one up because it's definitely more of a delicate balance. It's not a platformer that I've made a million of in the past, so I'm kind of going in this blind.
Right.
I'm not going to set anything in stone because I don't want to rush. I don't want to kill James.
Yeah. Well, good for yeah.
But if it makes you millions of dollars,
I can only crack the whip so hard without killing. So.
Cho the Master admits that he's sure you're sick of this, but he does want to just get a general update on Mugenics. Wondering what's going on there.
Okay, I'm fine with talking about Mugenics at this point. I can say that Mugenics is no longer a Team Meat game. I hope to work on it again when I have a life outside of I would love to work on it again. I don't know when the fuck that's going to be. I would love to work on it again. Like Mugenics, the design, the theme, and everything I would wanted to do and say with that game was something that I love dearly from the get-go. Shit just didn't happen. You know, sometimes shit happens and whatever, you got to move on. But in this situation, I can work on it, and I would like to work on it, and hopefully once Bumbo's out, maybe Tyler and I can jump in and start prototyping some stuff. I have a lot of ideas for it that take it in some new and interesting ways, because of course I don't want to remake the same thing. It's really like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where you've edited something or done whatever.
I'll stop you right there. I have not.
I edit all the time. I'm listening.
Okay. And then you lose everything you're doing.
Oh fuck!
That
literally happened to me last week.
Yeah, you're like, how the fuck am I going to have the motivation to do this again? I already know what happens. I know you have to change it up in some way in order for you to just get through it.
Right.
And you hire an editor and just make it
over it.
Yeah. So with Mugenics, it's that sort of situation where I have an endless amount of artwork that I know that I can reuse, but gameplay wise, I think I have to come up with something a little more entertaining for myself to work on, which will be cool because Tyler's really great to work with, and I think we can do something pretty cool. But fingers crossed. You never fucking know. I could be dead tomorrow, along with James.
Related to that.
But yeah, let's hope this episode doesn't go viral tomorrow.
Yeah,
that would be
Crew has a really bad ability with. Never mind.
It's some weird celebrity death curse you guys
got
going on, right?
Sort of cyclically seem to kill people. Maybe cyclically as well. I don't know.
No. We talked about Betty White on Wednesday, and she is still alive as of the time that we started today's episode.
Have you checked since
we better, I don't know if you want to
stream?
jinx it.
And she's old, so she,
I think she might
I'm not
be
going to
immortal,
finish
though.
that sentence. But
Okay.
I wanted to ask this one from Young Khaleesi. He asks, what strategies do you use to take care of your mental health?
My answer too.
Yeah.
Work more. That's what I do.
Yeah. I've done that for years. It doesn't seem to work. You can't work that off. Honest strategies, I would say, and I've been in some horrible spots in my life, and it's hard to dig out of the hole sometimes. And I would say the things that I always stick to are getting outside. number one.
Yeah.
Like just getting the fuck away, getting away from things, being around people even if you don't like them. Like I remember I hate bars. I don't drink, and there was a time where I was really low, like really fucking low, and I thought, what would be the one thing that I would never want to do? One situation I would never want to be in is just be around a bunch of fucking dudes that are drunk in a bar. And I just went to a bar and hung out, and it was an awful experience, but it was an awful experience that made me realize I was alive, made me realize there's a whole world out there, and realize, you know, certain things don't matter as much as I think they matter. It's like forcing yourself to into an uncomfortable situation can kind of relieve a lot of stress, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
And make you kind of more humble. So definitely like just getting out there, being around people, just experiencing life, just realizing that there's more going on than whatever you're worried about or your situation that you're in. And then I usually just consume copious amounts of art, you know, movies and music.
I'm glad he said art.
Yeah,
Code art.
Yeah.
Legal art.
Legal art. I watch a lot of movies, play a lot of games. I don't play as much games now, but I listen to a lot of music. Music is my number one. Everybody has their thing that like moves them and keeps them afloat. And for me, it's just like listening to a really good album and listening to it loud can really bring me back up.
What have you been listening to lately?
The latest thing I've been listening to, Fucked Up a lot. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. I feel
like I would remember if I had heard of them.
Okay, they're good.
They're Canadian.
Oh,
they're Canadian.
Of course they are. God damn
There's
it.
an album called
Chemistry of Common Life.
No, well that one's great too. But David Comes to Life, I think, is their best one. Like it's a fucking insane emotional roller coaster.
Awesome.
I like emotional music, and the Queens of the Stone Age album, and I can't say enough good things about that one. Like not the newest one, but the one before that, Like Clockwork, astoundingly great. And it has even more impact now that I know that it recently came out that what's his name, Josh Homme or whatever his name is, it came out that he actually was like on basically using drugs again and had died, and that whole album was about him being brought back to life.
Yeah.
And like when you listen to the second to last song on that, I Appear Missing or whatever, that song will give you chills, but like it's just nuts. That album's really great. I love that album a lot. And I just listen to whatever's new. I try whatever else. I really like the new Weezer album, and not the latest one, but the one I'm still like a year back. But
you kind of go into a hyperbolic time chamber a bit, don't you? You just sort of let the rest of the mainstream pass you by when you get into this mode a little bit.
I guess so. I just go to the things that work for me.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm literally what's happening here is we're talking about when the last time I was really, really low was, which is like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was this morning, yeah.
You know, and even like the latest Radiohead album that came out last year as well, I was listening to a lot of them, but that was more depressing than anything else.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes other people's depression will make you feel more like, okay, this is life. Everybody's feeling like this.
Yeah,
absolutely. Indulge me in this one for a moment here. A Fungus Dude wants to know your thoughts about the announcement of Spelunky 2.
Oh, it's fucking great.
Yeah.
Well, I knew it was happening for years because
you did. Oh,
I just couldn't spill the beans. I mean, he always told me that, you know, we're working on this, we're talking about this, I have designs for this. It's like gimme.
Yeah.
And I hopefully will be seeing him, you know, soon enough, and I will get a taste of that sweet can.
Nice. Indulge me, because this is even more mundane, potentially. But you mentioned like you're cracking names, or at least that's the role that you have at this point in the project. But it strikes me, and I could be wrong here, that you're not really the kind of person who wants to handle that end, like the business end and the organizational stuff. So what is that like with a small team? And like, are you the quote unquote project manager who has to make sure it all gets done?
Yeah. I'm trying to get used to it more because I think realistically the situation that I'm in with a family now and realizing my priorities of being, you know, a husband and a father, I'm gonna like the end is nigh was my final hurrah when it came to killing myself for my work. Like the taking that heavy load and just running with it. Like I simply can't do that anymore. It's just not, it's an irresponsible thing for me to do.
Yeah.
So I need to force myself to be more comfortable to be in the design production role, and not do so much heavy lifting because I just simply can't, at least not for a few years. I don't know what the future will hold, but I mean, I just gotta be honest with myself. I like hanging out with my family a lot more than I like making games. But I also can't survive without making art. So it's this balance of like, how do I keep this going? And if the answer is cracking a whip, I'll crack a whip and see how it works. And if it doesn't work out, I'll move on to something else. I mean, even if it means not making games in the future, making something else creative, I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, it's also, you know, having fun working with your friends, and there's a lot of that too. There's a lot of camaraderie that goes into this, and knowing that you can help somebody else out that you respect creatively, and you know, it's all stuff that I enjoy. But I definitely feel the need to kind of pull back a bit and not just overwork myself. I think we talked about that a little last time.
We did,
too.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We definitely went into it last time. Yeah,
it's that feeling. It's that feeling of like, I feel worthless unless I'm carrying everything. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if every guy feels like that, but it's like I definitely feel that way. Like I feel like I'm a mule, and I have no value unless I'm plowing. Yeah, it's just just the way it goes, and I'm trying to be okay with it, and I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
And I feel more comfortable now than I felt last time we talked when it comes to that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's just about keeping my priorities straight, and realizing what makes me happy, and realizing that making video games for the rest of my life isn't the end all be all, and I can do other creative things to feel fulfilled.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good answer.
Mm-hmm. Mathis and Nick, did y'all happen to spot anything and have anything you needed a burning question? Nothing?
I had one a while ago, and we kind of got into other stuff, and now it's gone.
Yeah, no, sorry, Chad. We're it's cycling through real quick. If you got another question, feel free at Roundtable Podcast in the chat to do it.
Now that we've had that heartfelt conversation about what it means to be a man in a creative industry, who's your favorite member of the Backstreet Boys?
No, it's interesting. Like, not even going into question, but again, we did talk about this last time you were on. But how much of that applies even to what, at least what we do, at least on my end, of feeling the need to have to do everything, because if you don't, for me, like you said, one of the hardest things I've done with one of my channels where I do like comedy reviews and stuff is when I started that channel, it was all me. I did the editing, writing, recording. I did everything while also trying to maintain a stream, D&D show, and my normal Mathis Games channel. I wanted to die. But at the same time, like I wanted to be creating these types of shows. I wanted to do something that was more than just Let's Plays. I wanted to do something that was creatively challenging and stuff, but it became unfeasible. But I wanted to do it. So bringing on an editor and handing off the editing process while still like trying to get my comedy to come through and what the jokes I wanted to come through it was really hard. It still is really hard for me to hand that aspect of creation off, because now I feel like part of it's not mine, even though it still is. Like, it's still my creation, but it's now my creation with somebody else, and to give that away in a way, even though I pay him for it and he works with me, it's really hard to do. And I don't know if maybe that's a similar feeling that you have, like handing off that work. You're like, well, now it's not my baby anymore. Now it's mine and somebody else's, and it becomes something that you don't fully own.
Yeah, for sure. In a way, there's something about that, and there's also for me I'm a really controlling person when it comes to what I want to do, and then it's over time I've learned to not do this, but in the past I found myself like almost manipulating the other people that I worked with into thinking that the ideas were theirs, so they were more okay with them. Fucking a horrible thing to admit, but I do that. I don't do that anymore. I feel like it's a manipulative director role where it's just like, I need this done. How can I have my way? And I think I've definitely learned to be more okay with the fact, like, especially with the end is nigh, like it was such a marriage of ideas, and I've never ever worked with anybody who I allowed to even touch a level design. I would not fucking do it. That is my territory. No way. But Tyler has done level design, and Tyler's a good level designer. So we kind of came up with this, like, how do we kind of split this to make this work? And Tyler ended up making all the above and below. So I did the linear path. He did above and below, and it became this like amazing marriage of like ideas, and you can tell like the different stylings. Like he has this more puzzly style to it, and we get to riff on what each other were doing. It was just really cool, and it kind of got into that sweet spot of like, and not to say who you're working with might not be as creative as you are, but it's finding a really creative person that gets what you're doing, but also has their own spot and knows what they're good at, and then you kind of do it together. But you kind of got to be creative with that sort of stuff and come up with ways that make it work. But with Tyler is one of the first times that I've really been able to do that. It's cool with James too. It's an odd back and forth. So James isn't normally a programmer. I guess he did programming back in the day, but I don't see him as a programmer. I see him as an artist. He's a visual artist. So this is the first time I've ever worked with another visual artist. So it's like my toes are stepped on in a lot of different ways, and I'm just learning to move them out of the way or just deal with getting stepped on. And it's just like, okay, I'm a grown up. I don't need control over every little thing. These guys know what they're doing. I respect what they're doing. Obviously, that's why I'm working with them. And like, I can't be this Nazi when it comes to the control that I have over everything. And you just got to deal with it. But I definitely feel you. It's like there's a lot of confliction. There's a lot of feelings that it's like, what am I feeling here? Why doesn't this feel right? And how am I okay with it? But I mean, just think of how they do it in big industry stuff. It's like they've got one guy telling a bunch of people what to do, another guy's telling him what to do, and it's just like, where do people have their place? Like that's one of the reasons why I simply just couldn't and never would even approach the idea of working in an industry, because it sounds awful, but I could never have somebody tell me what to do, and I'm only going to work on the stuff that I like to work on.
Yeah.
like, that's just the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I found out really early on that the stuff that I like isn't stuff that other people like for the most part. So no way in hell I'm going to get anybody to listen to me and say, this is a good idea. You should make poop and pee be your main mechanics for your video game. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I have to do it myself. And how am I going to do that? You just fucking work towards it.
Yep. Awesome. Black Knight wants to know, how do you feel about the Isaac series as a whole now that the last DLC is out?
It's an interesting mess. It is. I mean, it's. So I've gone back and forth on this forever, and this is another like acceptance thing where like I've come to accept the fact that part of what is appealing about the game is how completely chaotic and bloated it is, and of course from a design standpoint, I was cringing the whole time and like going, can this get any bigger?
Just keep filling the balloon with air, just waiting for the moment, right?
But it never popped. It just got all blobby.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that's where it is. I mean, it's at the state where like it's all blobby. It still resembles what I initially went in. Like, I think the reality is like you strip it all apart, and Rebirth stands on its own. Afterbirth is a great expansion. Afterbirth Plus is a little bit of a mess, and there you go. What are you gonna do? Like, as a whole, though, like if you play it on Switch and stuff, and everything's there and everything unlocks in a specific way, I think it's great, and I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
It can use some touch-ups here and there, and hopefully we'll get to do that. As time passes, but yeah, it's a little, it's in the end, it's a little sloppy, but I think it's okay. It got away from me, and I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I kind of like handed it off to the fans, because it's like, I love that game a lot.
Yeah.
I love watching people play it. I love working on it. I love everything about it. I even love, and I say this now, and I might change the way I feel about it in the future. I love how passionate people are about the games.
Mm-hmm.
It's great fun overall, and I've had a lot of fun with it. Every aspect of it throughout. And I would love to be able to kind of close the book on it by the end of the year. As you guys might know, Vin, the lead designer programmer for Anti-Birth, has been working with us on the last booster and the final booster.
Oh.
And I'm hoping. So basically, Adrian is in charge of like porting specific items from the community over, and then Vin and I kind of are going through and tuning things up. Nick also works with us as well. He did a bunch of level design. He also worked on Anti-Birth. He did levels for Anti-Birth and I think the cutscene. I think he did some art too. They're great guys, really, really great. Obviously, they know the game really, really well. So it's great to hear their feedback. And hopefully we can kind of close out the year with some sort of conclusive little bitty bonus and see what happens in the future as far as, I mean, I could definitely see myself in the few years considering a sequel. That's one of those things that, like, looking back, I think a sequel would have been better than more DLCs, because the problems that I see, which aren't problems other people see, but the problems I see with the game design revolve around the repetition of story-driven bosses like Mom, the Heart, Satan, etc. I think if those were fully randomly generated events, I think there's issues with the usable item structure, which was inherently flawed after 200 items appeared. It's like you've got a bunch of dead space. It seems like there should have been more spaces to use usable items and stuff like that. So there's like a list of what I would fix, what I would improve, and how I would revamp the whole situation if I were to do a sequel. And there's no doubt that I'll probably consider that one day, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, sure.
I love it. I can't get away. Like it's one of those projects that for me is really fun to work on because it's really fun to watch people play it. As you guys probably know, people like watching.
They sure do, don't they?
Like outrageous appetite for watching
Yeah.
it.
So
Got another one here from Spike, who wants to know, how do you know when it's time to leave one project and move on to another? Did you read Derek Yu's Spelunky book by chance?
Yeah. I look, check this out.
Nice. There it is. I like it. So I'm sure you know.
Yes.
I'm sure you know that in the book he mentions how important he feels it is to finish projects. He talks about how he's got all these unfinished projects that he wishes he would have completed. Do you feel similarly that it's important whether or not you're going to actually put it out to at least complete the project?
If you're starting out and you haven't made much, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're starting out, like you're never gonna make anything in the future that's gonna be significant unless you finish the little things that you start in the beginning. One of the first projects that I ever started was called Serious P-Shy, and I actually worked on it with Tom Fulp, who could no longer work on the project anymore because he had to work on Alien Hominid and then eventually Castle Crashers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like left in the dust, and I started working with another programmer that I worked with in the past. His name's Calder, and we tried our best to finish it. I hated every second of it. It took 3 years, and it didn't make a dime. We could barely get a sponsorship deal out of it, and it was just throwaway, and I hated it the whole time, but at least it was done.
Yeah.
At least it came out, and it was finished. And you need those sort of humbling experiences, but also ones that make you realize that you can complete something, because even if it sucks, it still feels good to have something finished.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, face it, your first couple projects are going to suck. It's just the way it works. That's how people learn. Now, man, there have been so many projects that I've worked on that have just died because, it's either somebody else I'm working with has a breakdown or doesn't like what's happening, or doesn't have money, or whatever else. Like, there's so many things that happen where it's something goes wrong, and have to put a project down and just be okay with the fact that it's been put down. I've thrown away literally years and years on projects that I know will never see the light of day. And if I forced myself to finish those projects, I would have lost my mind and I probably wouldn't be married. You know, it's like you got to know when to cut your losses. You got to know when the relationship with somebody you're working with is a toxic relationship and it's not going to go anywhere. You've got to just be realistic about a lot of things. And I think so if you're just be as logical as you possibly can be about the whole broad situation. And sometimes you just got to put it down and say, it's not making me happy. It's not going to work. Let's move on. It's a waste of time and money. I think most people are pretty realistic and they can see, if you can see, you're working on a project and you're investing time and money into it and you expect to make money back. If you're showing it to people and they're not really excited about it, it's probably going to do so well. And if this is your end all be all and you've got 2 more years to work on this thing, don't do it. Don't fucking throw away your life because you saw somebody make it big, once. It's be realistic about what you're doing. Sometimes I hate that the movie in a way kind of casts this illusion. I think I might have mentioned this last time as well, where it's even though they showed that I had almost 10 years of experience before the movie was recorded and I worked forever on bullshit, but it's still, people will still see it and think oh, I just came out of nowhere. I made Super Meat Boy, did really well. It's they don't see the whole process there. And I was never super unrealistic about what I was doing. I never put myself in a financial situation that I couldn't get out of. I'm not a big risk taker and I'm not a big gambler when it comes to that stuff at all. I still don't gamble, even though I'm financially secure. I just have a really hard time throwing money away, spending money or gambling money, because I grew up really poor. And, it's hard when money's hard to come by. You need to learn how to penny pinch and not take those risks. And I recommend the same to everybody else. Just be really fucking realistic about what you need, what makes you happy, your financial risks. Don't put your someone messaged me the other day. It's how do you work when you have a kid? I'm starting on my whatever projects, my first project, and I don't know how I'm supposed to work a full-time job, have a child, and then do this. And I was like, you won't.
You don't, right? Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And I was in a similar situation, but I didn't have a kid. When I worked animal control, I was working full time, and I remember thinking, I'm just going to come home and make games. It's no. I'm going to come home and watch a fucking television show, eat dinner, and go to bed. That's the way it works, and you just have to be realistic about it. If you want to be happy because, it's a hobby, video game design is a hobby, and you want to be happy and do it on the weekends and, shoot the shit with your friends who are also game developers or whatever else, it's fucking great. Just be realistic about the fact that it's not gonna be something you risk your future or your prospective partner's future on something like that. You just got to be real.
Yeah, absolutely. Seen this one in a few variations in the chat. Cutter Edge wants to know: is there any genre of games that you love but would hate making a game in that genre?
So that's a good question. I'm trying to think of. Straight RPG, an RPG like Fallout.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I totally love Fallout, but I could never see myself designing that game.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those the only story-driven game that I actually am into because I really like the theme, and I don't, I just don't see myself venturing into complicated RPG territory.
Yeah.
There's just so much there that I don't completely understand and I don't care to learn. But I super appreciate it. I'm sure there's other things. I mean, I don't see myself ever doing a online shooter, but I feel like I would enjoy working on it. It might just be one of those things where it's because I'm independent, I'm just less inclined to do a 3D multiplayer game, so I don't think about it. But
yeah, makes sense. Let's see. Oh,
I saw one earlier that was. Is there anyone in particular in the industry that you wouldn't mind collaborating with?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a ton of people. I just don't know how the collaboration would work again because I'm such a design Nazi. For the most part, all the significant developers that I really respect are. It's I'd love to work with John Blow. I'd love to work with Derek Yu. I'd love to work with George Fan, Terry Kavanaugh, Cactus, These are all people I respect a great deal and just will love the shit out of whatever they make, and I think they're really great. But I don't see how we would collaborate because we're all the same. We're all like used to having a vision and executing said vision. So it's like, it's I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's just one of those things. But if I can figure it out, I'll do it one day.
Right. All right.
Ryan's Unity certified now, so
Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah.
Tomo Quest
Tomo Quest, yeah.
needs an art director.
I've worked with somebody who looks just like you. I can make that. I just pick up where I left off.
We even failed to mention this at the top of the show, but he's also making a repeat appearance as mobile esports star Northern Lion in the Amazon Tournament of Champions. They're doing it again this year.
I forgot. Did that take place by the time we talked last year?
I think it was like literally right before it. It was the Edmund show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be competing in iOS, and well, it's literally not iOS. I just kiboshed the whole thing. I'll be competing in games on the Amazon App Store.
Yeah.
In New York City in 2 weeks. Many games that you know and or love.
Oh, it's your boy Northern. That's
correct. It's not me. It's my sellout alter ego that absolves me of all ethical concerns.
Is it a Minions game?
There is a Minions game.
Oh boy.
Of course there is.
There are two. No, there's one Disney game. There's a Minions game. Flappy Bird's in there. There's a Mario Kart style arcade racer.
Yeah. Get your tickets today.
You've been playing many mobile games. I know you were mentioning Pokemon Go a lot, but has there been anything else on mobile that's caught your eye, Edmund?
My daughter's got into playing little baby games.
Oh yeah.
So she plays this game. Tyrone came over. It's called Monkey Lunchbox.
Wow.
So the interesting thing is after playing all these different games and watching her play, which is really interesting to watch a kid learn and the trial and error of that. But they all have the same formula. It's like give them, choose the biggest or smallest, choose the shape, choose the color. Now you put a puzzle together.
Yeah.
And like the Monkey Lunchbox game does exactly that, except once you hit the 4th level, it says, choose a sticker. And then you like move a progressive sticker. It's like you keep stacking stickers up on this wall. And it's just so odd, but she doesn't see it as a reward. She sees it as a game. It's like, I'm moving a sticker up on the board. And she'll just close the app and move on. But yeah, no. It's not. It's definitely. It's kind of like shitty. It's like I can talk a lot about development, but about actually playing games, that's like I just don't play them. I don't know. I have a question for you though. Like, have any of you guys like after the controversy with PewDiePie of saying the N-word on stream? Did when that happened? Did any of you guys go, "Oh shit, I need to delete something"?
We've already all taken care of that a long time ago, dude. Like, we've been on high alert about that shit from day one.
Because I wonder that, especially like with you guys doing like hot stuff now.
Yeah,
it's like you don't want to jeopardize anything, and like, yeah, I just think because I mean, man, I've said some crazy shit. I haven't said the N-word, but I've said other words that are probably not appropriate. And I'm always wondering like how it works for you guys as far as like having.
No, I think honestly, we're all just waiting for the day where somebody unearths some forum post we made in like 2006 that like paints us as this horrible homophobe or something.
I think it's just like, everybody probably has done things that they regret, but like it's the way that you approach it that makes a difference in today's day and age. Yeah. If you approach it and you just like you try to scrub it and you like ignore it, then that looks really bad. And if you just go, hey, everybody was different, everybody's grown, especially if you've grown up on the internet, then it's it's a learning experience. So I think if you approach it in good faith and you go, like, definitely there are words that I have said in YouTube videos that I don't say anymore. And the way that it happened is people went, hey, you shouldn't say that word. And I said, you know what? Part of growing up is admitting that you're probably right.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah,
I think as a group, we tried to be a bit more conscientious. I think really all of us from the get-go, and I think that's also partially why kind of drew us all together.
Yeah.
We sort of know where the line is, or at least we've developed an ability to know where the line is better. So I don't personally feel like I have anything really I need to wipe out.
Yeah, I felt the same way where it's like, well, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I ever said anything in any interview that could be, somehow construed as hurtful or mean or awful or anything that would be considered bad now. And I was like, no, I'm not a mean guy. I don't say mean things for the most part. If I say something, I'm doing it as usually, if it's extreme, it's as a joke. And I hope to God it reads as a joke. But I think I know the boundaries. But then recently, me and my wife were looking through, we used to do just random ass videos of like what we were doing, I guess vlogs, but it was like early mid 2000s stuff.
Before the vlog era.
Yeah.
You guys could have been the biggest vlog
Yeah.
on the internet.
They're still all up there. It's all just like, I was just, I needed some creative outlet and I wanted to edit things with music, whatever shit people do.
Yeah.
And there was like one video where I referred to somebody as a tranny and I was like, oh shit. But that was different then. Like I did not, it's just weird. Like time changes and it's like, and I think I said faggot in one of the other videos. And it's just like, oh, it's like, it's all I need is someone to like dig up a video of me saying faggot or tranny. And then that being like the next thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
It's just so weird how the times change and you see stuff dug up and it's like, so-and-so said this back in 1999. And it's like, well, they were like 13 years old. And like, like
They can barely form coherent sentences. I don't know if we should really be trying to hold them accountable.
Again, I think that's what it comes down to. Is it was different back then, but showing a willingness to like learn and grow is what's important. If there's almost like, I think everybody has a certain degree of defensible ignorance where it's like, well, I grew up in a town where my school was like 80 people and we all lived in the woods, more or less.
Yeah.
So we were saying things you probably should not have been saying even back then. But as you get older, and especially like when you have an audience of people that care about what you say, I think you have a responsibility to some extent to be more open to being educated. And we catch it all the time because on our show that we do, we go into some territory that's like offensive or edgy, and occasionally it rubs people the wrong way. But what seems to be like the best way to get through it for everybody is to just be like, we'll try to do better. We're trying to be funny without being hurtful. Occasionally we may overstep the line, but it's meant to be well-intentioned.
Yeah.
It's good faith is the thing. You have to come at it from the perspective that if you mess up, you didn't mean to mess up and you'd want to do better.
Intent
I
is
think
everything.
as long as you keep that, that'll make the difference.
Intent and being an adult and learning.
Yeah.
It's really just, you can say like, oh, I grew up in the forest. Also, it was 15 years ago before I had more worldly experience than I did back then and understanding culture and moving forward and all that.
I mean, to answer your question, I think it's way more damnable. And I'm like far more concerned about saying something tomorrow accidentally than I am about saying something in the past.
Yeah, I can see that.
At the end of the day, at least you didn't admit to a crime on a podcast, right? So like you got that bar to go down to on the bottom.
I didn't admit to a crime because it's not like I confessed to something I was hiding. It wasn't like some private thing.
You were open about the crime.
Right.
Is there a statute of limitations?
I was just gonna say, I think we passed it by now, right?
He's already done the time.
I paid.
There's no need for a statute of limitations.
Papers were signed. Money was paid. I'm absolved.
Clear.
It's done. I didn't go to jail. I didn't spend time in the slammer.
You're good. You're good. I had to get one more. I'm sorry. I'm being.
No.
It's low hanging fruit, and I keep taking it.
Like once a week, there's a post on the Circle Jerk of like, it was freaking me being a criminal.
It's usually just
and every once in a while, there's somebody who's like, "Wait, Mathis committed a crime. What a piece of shit!"
What he did? Oh, you should see what he did. He's a monster.
There's somebody who wrote like a 2-paragraph like dissertation as to why I'm a piece of garbage, and I'm like, this was like when I was much younger, much stupider, and admitted wrongdoing.
Yeah.
that was the same one where I admitted to stealing from Blockbuster, right?
Yeah, I think you
Right,
started
but-
it. I think I
but
was like,
you
what
don't
opened up
have-
the door?
But there was no meme attached to you called "fuck Edmund." The fuck is gonna attach to me in some
might be
way.
now.
So like, nothing I do is going in a good light.
Oh man.
During that conversation, did I also mention shooting the windows out of a house? Did I mention
I don't
that?
I don't
think
remember.
so.
I don't
think
Now,
so.
now you need
this,
to.
Maybe this will take some heat. One time, a friend and me and a friend. Wow, I feel like I totally told the story before here. A friend and so it was Christmas. So
Good time.
I know that it was Christmas. It was Christmas. My friend got a BB gun. His brother got a BB gun, and he lived kind of like on the outskirts of the woods. And we were shooting each other with these like stupid shit that boys do, shooting each other with BB guns, shooting whatever with BB guns. We finally find this like what appeared to be a rundown shed. We started shooting at the windows, shot out all the windows. This escalated to finding the house attached to the shed and shooting all of the windows out of this house. There was no thinking. There was no thought ever. It was just total like mob mentality, insanity. It was like, what are we doing? Who knows? What are we doing? Come on. And like, I didn't think anything of it. And I was 10 or maybe 11. And I had gotten home, and then of course my friend called me crying. The police were there.
Oh,
I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail. I'm
Oh,
going
God.
to jail. Oh my God. And I was scared fucking shitless. But the thing that scared me the most was knowing that like we were going to have to pay for this, and I was going to have to tell my stepdad. And oh my God, that was the most frightening thing in the world, knowing that I would have to tell this man that I did something like this. That was held way more weight than any jail they could put me in. But in
go
the
to
end,
prison. You're safe.
in the end, I remember us very vividly going out and me having to like, I was so shameful having to admit like, oh yeah, I did all this stupid shit and it's gonna cost us money and all this other stuff. And in the end, he said, I've done worse.
Wow.
That's
Article
great.
tomorrow. Edmund McMillen admits to vandalism.
Yeah,
You do stupid shit when you're young.
that's right.
And like it's not, and like even the 18 thing, it's like I look back at like kids that are between the ages of 18 and 24, and it's like you're fucking children.
Yeah.
You don't know what the fuck you're doing yet. It's like I just feel bad for kids that get caught up on like their 18th birthday. Like I had a friend that stole 2 Xboxes when he turned 18, and he FaceTime for it, and we called them 2 Xboxes forever. It sucks. Like it sucks, but everything fucking sucks. Like, things are
Yeah.
kind of in a way that shitty things happen, and you make mistakes when you're young, and hopefully it doesn't haunt you forever. But lay off of him, guys.
Yeah,
Like-
take it easy.
Lay off of him.
But then I have no brand, so it's like it's a give and take. Like I need to,
He didn't beat off in front of anyone that we know.
Now
and
we
I
know
hope
of you.
that I never have.
I hope that I never have.
No, I said I hold on to that. I
Oh,
never
okay, yeah, no, that's good.
What do you
That's
hold
better.
on to?
have. Flag. It says I have not beat off. In
I was really hoping I'd be able to interject after you saying everything fucking sucks. But thank you, Edmund McMillen, for joining us again on the podcast. We appreciate your time here, man. Of course, I want to give you the floor here. If there's things you want to promote, feel free to do so.
Oh, the end is nigh. It's on Steam. Buy it. It'll probably be on sale when the sales happen, you know, the usual sale things. And it's coming out on Switch on the 12th of December. You can actually pre-order like a super special copy that comes with extras physical. If not, you can just buy the $15 digital version on Switch. And it may come to PlayStation next year. I don't really know.
Ooh.
And then The Legend of Bumbo will be out next year sometime early, hopefully. And you can get a bunch more information from thelegendofbumbo.com. And is there a dash in that? I don't know. I don't even know my own URL.
Let me look it up real quick.
There is a dash. The Legend
Yeah.
of Bum Dash Bow.
Yeah. And bum dash bow. You got it. It's fucking easy.
Yeah.
Somebody type it. You got everybody click it.
I got
Yeah,
it. Hold on. I'll take care of it.
But yeah, and then follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to do the rounds as far as like, hey, I care. I care about what I'm working on.
I swear.
I'm trying to fucking push my wares.
Let's see, we're also used to doing these end of video spiels, so we're well
Video
versed in
games cost a lot of money to make.
Don't be mad when I interject loot boxes and gambling.
Please follow me on Twitter.
Oh, did I drop the wrong link? Shit, my bad. I dropped it off.
Did not have the dash.
I don't know. I thought I put the wrong one or the right one. www.legendofbum-bow.com, right?
Yeah.
That is not it, apparently. Oh, well, no, there it goes. Okay. No, I was right. Fuck you, Chad. I did it right. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And,
That's it? Good? Cool. I know Ryan's got to get going, so we want to kind of get through this last bit, but thank you very much.
gotta fly out.
We didn't have to mention this, but it's correct.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Thank you very much for joining us, though, again, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us for another episode of Roundtable Live. We appreciate it. Thank you very much to our supporters over on patreon.com/roundtable. Want to thank those of you who are pledging at that $20 tier and above, which include Julian Abelsgard, Jonathan Graham, Scotty119, Ricky Griss, Murfett, Cowboy Chemist, Todd Buckley, Eric Schooley, Stephen Aoki, Metadata Studios, James P., Peter Sinnison, John Kalchik, Ellis Spice, O. Thomas Games BR, Jakar Sampson with a dance number, Kulnar, Sehoa, Joseph Boss, Penn Gillette, Talks to Wall, Chaos, Hi Edmund, By Edmund, Theorist, Colby Klein, Greenlight, Orin Saltzman, Brizzle Brit, Positron, Mythscara, Mediocrities, Justin, and Logan Ray. Thank you guys so much for the support over on Patreon. Also want to thank our subs over here on Twitch today. It's Perfect Hunter, Blawwall, Pate, Malou, Striker, Rockley Smile, look at that guy, Rob Boberts, Berglund, Streamcap, Vaping Kiwi, and Garrett Storm. Thank you guys so much for the support over here on Twitch as well. Thank you for watching the show. VOD will be up tomorrow on youtube.com/BaerTaffy. Oh, what?
Can I do the announcement?
Yeah, do it.
We have Bennett Foddy coming to the show on the 8th of December.
Woohoo!
So mark your calendars.
Creator of Getting Over It and Quap, Bennett Foddy. Have you checked out Getting Over It yet, Edmund, by the way?
Is that the thing with the...
It's the Cauldron and the Hammer. Yeah.
No, I played the original. It wasn't called that. I don't think.
Oh, Sexy
it's called
Hiking.
Sexy Hiking.
Yeah, Sexy Hiking.
Yeah.
That's old fucking school.
Mhm.
I've seen people playing it. It looks fucking great. It's definitely that type of game.
Awesome.
No, I love that guy stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us again. Appreciate it. We will be back next week with another show. So we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Later.
Bye.